This all happened about 8 or 9 months after I moved into my very first house. I was 24, fresh out of college, finally making some decent money, and really trying to convince myself I was an adult. The house itself was nothing special, but it had one feature that immediately stood out. A massive basement. The previous owners had divided it into multiple sections using plywood and exposed framing. So, you had the main area right at the bottom of the stairs, a laundry section, what looked like an unfinished workshop, and then this strange back room that felt more like storage than anything else. Because of all these partitions, you couldn't see the entire basement from any one spot. It had this weird, maze-like layout that I remember thinking was kind of cool when I first toured the house. In reality, I barely ever went down there. The only reason I used the basement at all was to do laundry. So, one weeknight, I grabbed my laundry basket and headed downstairs. As soon as I opened the basement door, I noticed something was off. The basement lights were already on. I thought it was strange, but I didn't dwell on it. I just figured I must have forgotten to turn them off the last time I was down there a few days earlier. The lighting down there was awful. I still hadn't gotten around to replacing the old yellow incandescent bulbs that came with the house. So even with the lights on, the basement felt dim and was full of shadows. I walked down the stairs and stepped into the main area. For maybe 2 seconds, everything felt completely normal. But as I started walking toward the laundry machines, I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Instinctively, I turned my head and immediately locked eyes with a man crouching behind one of the folding tables in the far corner of the basement. My brain just completely froze. There was a stranger hiding in my basement. He looked filthy, like he'd crawled out of a sewer. His clothes were torn and dark, and his face looked hollow and sickly. We just stared at each other in total silence for what felt like an eternity. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I don't even remember breathing. Then he stood up, and instead of running toward me, he ran deeper into the basement, disappearing into the partitioned rooms in the back. That single movement snapped me out of my trance. I immediately started backing up toward the stairs, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. But before I could even reach the bottom step, every single light in the basement shut off at once. I had never experienced true darkness in that basement before. It was pitch black, complete and total darkness. I assumed I knew the layout well enough, so I kept moving toward where I thought the stairs were. That was a huge mistake. I tripped over something and slammed hard into the floor. When I scrambled back up, I was completely disoriented. The panic had taken over, and my sense of direction was just gone. My phone was upstairs on the kitchen counter. I started screaming at the top of my lungs, just hoping it would scare the intruder away. Instead, someone screamed back. From the other side of the basement, his scream was louder, deeper, and more terrifying than mine could ever be. He sounded completely unhinged, like someone who genuinely wanted to kill me. I stopped screaming, and so did... That's when I realized he was copying me. He was mocking me! I began moving slowly, feeling my way along the walls in the suffocating darkness. I could hear movement behind me, footsteps, breathing. The horrifying part was that it felt like he knew the basement better than I did. The sounds were getting closer. Just when I thought I was done for, my hand brushed against wood. The staircase. I grabbed the railing and started scrambling up the stairs. Before I could even reach the second step, something grabbed my ankle. He lost my grip, slammed my head hard into the railing, and fell backward onto the basement floor. Whatever had grabbed me started dragging me away from the stairs with unbelievable strength. I kicked and thrashed wildly, screaming as loud as I possibly could. Somehow, my foot connected with something solid. The grip loosened for just a split second, and that was all I needed. I twisted free and ran blindly back toward the stairs. He started screaming again, that same horrifying sound, but I didn't stop. I made it up the steps, burst through the basement door, and slammed it shut behind me. The door didn't have a lock. I pressed my entire body against it, shaking uncontrollably. Seconds later, I heard footsteps pounding up the stairs. The door slammed violently into me. For a brief, terrifying moment, it actually started to open. I screamed and pushed back with everything I had. He slammed into it again and again. I ripped my socks off so my feet wouldn't slip and braced myself against the floor. And then, He stopped. I heard footsteps running back down the stairs. I grabbed my phone from the counter and called the police, keeping my back pressed firmly against the door the entire time. When they finally arrived, the intruder was gone. One of the small basement windows had been forced open from the outside. Nothing was stolen. The police believed he had been living in my basement. The scariest part was that he knew exactly where the light switch was. He knew the layout in the dark. I moved out 4 months later. Looking back, I know one thing for certain. That man was fully prepared to kill me that night. And if I had hesitated for even a second longer, he probably would have. Thanks for listening. If you liked this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more. Stay safe out there.